to his safe return and all of the Chayalim, Avram, Asher, Ben Sarah, that Hashem should return all of the Chayalim and hostages to us safely, B'karov, Mamash. Okay, Tetzaveh has two things we're going to focus on. So we're going to divide it into two shirim. So if you only could stay for one part, don't worry, you can listen to the other recording. So the first is the only Parsha from when Moshe was born until Devarim, Mishnah Torah. This is the only Parsha where Moshe's name is not mentioned once in the entire Parsha. Now, this is brought down by Chachamim to be the explanation for when Moshe, it's why the Chachamim want to understand this. Why is Moshe not called by name? He gave Bnei Israel, so he didn't have to be erased in the whole Torah. But because a tzaddik's words are so powerful, and every tzaddik's words has to happen, therefore, in one parsha in the Torah, Hashem said, I'll take your name out of that parsha in the Torah, and that is Parsha Tetzaveh. So now the question is, why Parsha Tetzaveh? It's interesting because it's before Kisisa even happened. You would think it should be one of the following parshios, or that parsha, where his name is not mentioned directly, because to fulfill the words of a tzaddik. So we want to understand specifically Tetzaveh. Another thing that makes the question a little bit stronger is that Tetzaveh is often read around in the week of Moshe's passing. We read that week, Parsha Tetzaveh. So you think that it's everything we say about tzaddikim, that when they pass away, they're found more, they're accessed more than in their lifetime, because in their lifetime they're limited by their bodies, and after their passing, we can connect to the tzaddik even more, which is why we go to Cave of Rachel, all the tzaddikim, the Ma'aretz HaMachpelah, to connect to tzaddikim, because their influence is unlimited after they pass away. So if that is the case, then the week of Moshe's passing, we wouldn't read from a Torah portion where his name is erased and minimized. In fact, we would want Moshe's name to be where the Megillah doesn't mention the name of God even once. However, the entire Megillah is about faith and emunah and Hashem, and about Hashem's salvation. Passes away. His body is what limited him. His body's only one level of him, but his soul is so much larger than that. A name too. A name is a big part of you, but a name is only a limited fraction of ourselves. We discussed this in Parsha Shmos, right? And a name is really what other people use to call you, because people need to have something to call you. The very first word of this Parsha, which open your source sheet, is, someone took mine. Michelle, can I share with you? Oh, yeah. We'll share. Va'ata Tetzaveh, the very first pasuk in this week's, I had in mind for you guys to share. The very first word in this week's parsha is Va'ata. Who is Va'ata? And you, Tetzaveh, should command Bnei Israel, Bnei Israel, v'yikchu elecha, and they should bring to you, again, who is you? Moshe Rabbeinu. The very first word in the pasuk, in the Torah, in this parsha, is talking about Moshe, Va'ata, and you. Tetzaveh, Bnei Israel, v'yikchu elecha, shem and zayit, olive oil, kassis lama are crushed for lighting lahala ner tamid, right? So ba'ata, we learn from Chachamim that the word you and ba'ata is the deepest expression of Moshe's essence, of a person's self. And when you say you, when I call you and you turn around, I'm referring to all of you, to your essence, more than your name. When I say your name, I'm referring to one aspect of you that everybody can know and everyone can share that name. When I say you, I'm referring to who you are, right, to your entire essence. So in fact, by concealing Moshe's name in this week's Parsha, it allows in the time of his passing to reveal his entire essence, which is who he is, Moshe, Va'ata Tetzaveh. So that's one of the parts of the answer. Now, why specifically in this Parsha Tetzaveh? So when we learn a little bit more about the Parsha, it will help understand. So let's go back a step and just summarize what this Parsha is talking about. Last week we didn't learn because we did a class on Adar. But Teruma and Tetzaveh often go together. And Teruma and Tetzaveh together comprise of the very detailed instructions of how to build the Mishkan, the vessels in the Mishkan, mostly in Teruma, all of the vessels in the Mishkan, the fabric, the measurements of how they should be built and made and fashioned. Besides all of them, there's two mizbechot. There's two altars. There's the altar of copper, which is on the outside, where they brought karbanot on. And Kabbalah and Chassidut, all of the different kelim and vessels represent parts of our psyche, of our neshama, of our body, of our neshama. So there's the outer heart, and then there's the inner heart. And the altars represent our sacrifice to Hashem, which is a sacrifice to our heart, like tefillah and davening and avodah shabbalet. So there's the outer part of our heart, and then there's the innermost quintessential part of our heart, which is in this week's parsha, which is the inner ketores, which is the ketores of the inner mizbech. Every one of us are supposed to be a mini mishkan and fashion our lives after the mishkan, because the messages in the Torah were not just one time, this is how you should build the mishkan. What do we do now? The Mishkan wasn't something that was meant to be forever. It was a temporary dwelling. We learned that every single one of the details about how to build a Mishkan is an instruction that we can learn from, of how to create our mini Mishkan, our body, our soul, how to live our lives and make our home, our bodies and into a temple, into a home for Hashem to dwell in. Because that's what we're here for, to make our home, starting with our body and our soul, a place for Hashem Shekhinah to dwell through. In this week's Parsha, when we finish most of the vessels, most of the parsha begins with first the commandment of the Parshah Tetzaveh, of Hashem telling Moshe that the Jewish people should bring him the pure olive oil to feed the ner tamid, the everlasting flame of the menorah, the lights that would never go out. Which Aaron should then from evening until the morning, from every afternoon until the next morning. And then most of the parsha deals with, I would say, dozens and dozens, if not hundreds. I didn't count again. The big day kahuna, which are the garments that are worn by the kohanim, and the kohanim gedolim, the high priest, has to wear during his avoda. And I titled that part, the rest of the class, after we talk about all the time, because throughout our lives, we wonder why it matters so much what we wear. But specifically, it's amplified in this week's parsha when there is an extreme focus on what exactly the kohanim wear. So we'll get to that. Or draw the big day kahuna. You can pass these around.
Listen to her.
You're not a source person.
You're my source person.
Oh, thanks, Rini. You guys can definitely scribble on the sources. Okay, so just the end of the parsha concludes with the Hashem's instructions for the 7-day inauguration or initiation, Chanukas HaMishkan. Now, once the Mishkan is ready, you think they just start using it? It actually took 7 days of inaugurating it, of setting it up. So what happened in these 7 days? The Moshe would set up and erect all of the Mishkan and then wait for Hashem's Shekhinah and then take it down. For 7 days in a row, and only on the 7th day did Hashem's Shekhinah enter it. And the 7 is a very big number now because Moshe passed away on the 7th of Adar. And why the 7th, but that didn't happen until after the removal of the barrier by Matan Torah. Now, for the first time, the Shekhinah can dwell in this world, and that 7 days of erecting the Mishkan represents the 7 days of creation, was where Hashem's Shekhinah began from. But the ultimate point is that Hashem should not be limited to just being in the Mishkan. The point is that Hashem be expressed and felt, and the Shekhinah be felt in every single corner of the world. And the Mishkan, again, is just to serve as that was the Parsha in a nutshell. Now, going back to Moshe Rabbeinu, that's when there's a leap year, there's a mini Purim. And the Rebbe just this mimer son of so I was 1 year old then, and in Adar less than 2 weeks, the Rebbe of like the mission of what we're meant to do after. But in the whole mimer is based on the very first pasuk of this week's parsha, the Parshah Tetzaveh, and I'm going to teach us. I'm going to 4 beautiful teachings from this parsha, from this one pasuk. On life, on the meaning, on how we're meant to. Tetzaveh also means milashon savta v'chibor, to unite. So on a deeper level, if you look at the deeper meaning of this pasuk, it means that you, Moshe, should unite Bnei Israel. On either one level, to unite Bnei Israel with Hashem, to bring out that unity between Am Yisrael, to show them that they and Hashem are one. And another level, to bring Bnei Israel to become one unit, to become one, to aguda achas, unite all Bnei Israel, that we should become one. That Am Yisrael should be one. So Moshe's job is Tetzaveh. You should unite Bnei Israel, bring Bnei Israel together to be united with Hashem and with each other. And then what is their job? V'yikhlei lecha, and they have to bring to you shemen zayit zach, olive oil that is zach, pure olive. Halos ner tamid. Now, what's the deeper meaning of this? He says that they have to bring you olive oil to halos ner tamid, not in galus. That the same way that an olive, it's in the Chachamim compare many places a Jewish person to an olive. I think I touched on this in the Tu B'Shvat Seder we had in the Shiva Saminim. I did it at your house one year. I went to the Shiva Saminim, and the olive is compared to the Jewish person because just like an olive, when it's squeezed, the cures, their emunah comes out. Suddenly they have inner reservoirs of emunah and bitachon, and connect with your faith or bow to this eye, crushed for lighting. That kasas lamar, that when we're squeezed, our greatest light comes out. Now, there's 2 levels. So the first teaching from this pasuk is that the job of Moshe Rabbeinu, and later on the Chachamim tell us that Moshe Rabbeinu, there's one in every single generation. Hashem makes an extension of Moshe's soul, a leader of Am Yisrael, and every single generation Hashem gives us somebody that can lead us, and that we're crushed for lighting. And to get the olive oil, you first have to be crushed. Now, there's 2 levels to this. On one, sometimes and I would even dare to say that right now, there's times when the persecution, like in the Holocaust, in the times of when the Jewish people were in the communist Russia, when they were crushed, physically crushed and oppressed, and spiritually oppressed, not allowed to serve Hashem, suddenly the Mesiras Nefesh, the greatest light and Mesiras Nefesh for Hashem comes out when they'll give up their lives and hide in secret to learn Torah and hide their Jewishness and smuggle in Torah artifacts so they can serve Hashem. That's when their greatest light comes out, when externally we're oppressed. But there's another even deeper level of being oppressed. What about when we're living in America? I mean, I would say less now because now we're feeling this external oppression from but there's times when we're not externally oppressed, when we're not living in Soviet Russia, and it's harder to feel that Mesiras Nefesh, that same level of dedication. The Torah mitzvah circumcised their sons over the years, right? Over the pain of death. And where do we get that Mesiras Nefesh, that light, when we don't live in an oppressed time, when we're allowed to, physically we're not being killed for being Jews yet. I mean, just say that way, and in Gaza and in Israel, but in America, there's affluent Jews living in a comfortable life, and no one is penalizing them for being Jewish either spiritually. So spiritually and physically, we're emancipated on some. So where does that crush for lighting come then? So then the Rebbe says actually that comes from an even deeper level. It doesn't have to come from an external oppression or from being crushed by our oppressors who are killing our bodies and our souls and telling us we can't learn Torah, but it can come from the deeper place, from the very fact that we are in Gullus. Even if a Jew has all of the ruchnius in his life, he has access to the best teachers in Torah learning and is living a comfortable life and no one's killing him for being Jewish, the very fact that we are in Gullus, the very fact that as dark as it is, and that there can be the darkness that happened on